Hey guys, welcome back to episode 3 of Draft Podcast, a podcast about the draft. Today, me and my co host, Noah Terranova, are joined by a lovely guest. He is someone who has his own draft podcast named Tag the Roll with Jake Rosen. He's someone who writes for basketballnews.com, WNBA, among uh, thousands of other sites, seemingly. We are joined today by the one, the only Mark Schindler. How you doing today, man?
I appreciate you guys having me on. I've been friends with you both for a while, so I'm psyched that you guys wanted me here. We got a lot of stuff to get into today. It's been a fun day. Gonna wrap it up pretty nicely, so I can't complain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So today we are just going. Oh, oops.
No, you can go. You can say if you want.
Yeah. So today we are just going to be doing a first round mock draft, not a full 58, but we are going to be getting through the first 30 picks, just giving our thoughts on who teams should pick, why they should pick them. So, yeah.
Mm.
With the lottery out of the way, the Magic
So we
are
had to decide who's
up on the
picking
docket.
first, though.
Yeah, that
Mark,
is the
so
thing.
what pick do you want, Mark? Because you're the guest.
Oh man, I, that's tough. I feel like why are you putting this on me? What did I do
That's
to?
what all podcasts do. They always make the guest
Yeah,
pick.
yeah, yeah. Well, okay. I'll take the first overall pick. Screw it. Are we just going every? We'll do
Yeah, like we'll do
every
like
three.
so.
It's cool.
What pick do you want?
I'll take the third pick.
Okay, I'll take second.
Well, I mean, yeah, you're locked
Yeah.
into second no matter
Yeah,
what. But
second. Either way.
okay, well, yeah, I'll get us started. With the first overall pick, the Orlando Magic are going to take Paolo Banchero. I think that you can kind of go any way here. Like I'm cool with him or Chet, and I'll hear cases for Nabari for sure. But I just think adding another player who can round out with more creation on a team that I think really just needs as much shot creation and playmaking as possible. I love it, and I think that front court's going to be really funky and interesting, and funky in a way that I think is going to be effective. Having Franz and Paolo and Wendell, I think you can play all three of those guys together in most lineups, and it's something I want to see. So I'm going Paolo with the first overall pick.
That's probably what I would
Yeah.
have done as well. I don't think you can go wrong with him or Chet. I've had both of them at the top of my board for a while now, but I do lean a bit more towards Paulo just because I feel like with the first pick, you do want somebody to at least like, especially in a case like Orlando, where yeah, they have like some nice young players, but I don't feel like they have like that guy. Even though I really like Franz, Paulo to me is like the player that has the most potential to be that guy in this class, like the guy that you can potentially build around. I personally think he a realistic ceiling is more of like a high end number two, but out of anyone in this class, I think he has the most like build around potential. Like this is a guy that you want to build your team around.
Yeah, I really think he could be a cornerstone for somebody. I would have done the same thing. I think Chet and him bring different things to the table. Chet being more defensive oriented, Paolo being more offensive oriented, and with his playmaking, which I think he is probably my favorite playmaker in the class, probably the best in the class in my opinion. I think he's someone who can initiate, who can score. Yeah. So with the second pick, Noah,
So
the Thunder.
I think it's kind of an obvious pick. I'm gonna take Chet here at number two.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Best player available. I also think it really also fits a position need as well. Regardless, but because I think Chet is more of a power forward than a center per se. Um,
Genius.
because I do have some concerns about the way, not like concerns like oh he's not going to be able to play in the league, but to play like a true five position, I don't know if he'll ever reach a weight that suggests that he can like handle like that kind of physicality. But I think that he's just too good to suggest that like oh because he's a bit like maybe a bit underweight like he's not going to be good. High motor on defense. That's something I've noticed since he was like in high school even. He watched the Sierra Canyon game, but I think he has like the skills to be a good offensive player. I don't know if he'll ever be a dominant offensive player the way I view Paulo, but I think defensively he can be dominant. He's a world class shot blocker. I wouldn't say that he's like elite on switches and stuff like that, but I think that he can handle his own functional handle. And I think that, you know, I don't really view a way that he just doesn't work out in the league. And I can say that about both of these guys. Like, the chances of me viewing them as people, like, okay, they could flail out of the league, like, I just don't see that. And for OKC, you know, you have your playmakers, you have Giddy, you have Say, obviously, and to get a player that can impact the game on offense, but will have an impact on the game regardless, is valuable. And I think that's what Chet brings.
Yeah, I think he can be either a primary or a weak side rim protector. I think that OKC obviously needs a big because they have their guards. They have a couple of forwards that are nice. They don't have that five man quite yet, and I think Chet can fill that role, especially in a modern day NBA where there aren't a ton of like big hitters in the post, where you don't really need to worry about him being able to be bodied in the post. One, because he doesn't get bodied in the post that often. It didn't happen much in college or in high school. And two, there aren't like primary post players outside of guys who are already can't be guarded, like Embiid, a Jokic. So I don't. I
Mm.
think that that's a pick for OKC that I'd make as well.
Mark, any thoughts?
I just like it because, like, especially like adding Chet to this OKC group. Like, if OKC had the first overall pick, I think I would lean more into Chet just because, um, like, talking about SGA having Giddy there. Not that I mean, like I mentioned with Orlando, I think you always want to add advantage creators and people who can bend a defense, but also I think OKC is very much in a stage where they need, and they showed it, picking JRE last year. Um, they need guys who can just build an even better environment for those two to thrive and become the best versions of themselves that they can be. And I think Chet is somebody who is going to get too much of the, oh, he's got like a nice floor, but what's the ceiling type thing for him offensively. And I think it's more about like he's going to do a ton of stuff that really helps others thrive on offense. So yeah, I'm very much in on this pick.
And I forgot to mention his passing as well. He's a pretty good passer for his position. Like, not like, oh, this guy's gonna like light the world up as a passer, but he's capable of making those reads. It's just like it's a safe pick. Both the top two picks I think are gonna be safe picks, but they're both picks that have like relatively high ceilings. Maybe not quite like we saw with the players last year at the top of the draft, but closer to that I think people want to give credit for. But that moves us on to the third pick, which is held by Houston.
Yeah, Houston is a weird one for me because it really makes you value BPA for me personally at least and fit because I have Jaden Ivey and a tier above Jabari Smith, and I think Jabari Smith fits better with what they have already, but Jaden Ivey is a better prospect to me. He has more to his game to unlock, in my opinion, and I think he also might have a higher floor. But I also you have to account for Kevin Porter Jr. and Jalen Green already being there. But at the end of the day, I think that you have to choose talent over fit unless you are actively competing for a championship, which the Houston Rockets are not. And this early on in the draft, I think you take BPA. So I'm going to go with Jaden Ivey out of Purdue because I think that he complements Jalen Green fairly well. He plays off ball and can allow Kevin Porter Jr. and Jalen Green to get more on ball reps. If he's playing with them, he can unlock their games through secondary playmaking, tertiary playmaking at times. He's someone with off the dribble juice, but someone who should primarily be seen and viewed as a off ball prospect. And I think with KPJ and Jalen Green both trying to grow as playmakers that can help, get them reps in situations where they have to make passes to where they are reading and reacting. And he is someone who has a good off ball movement, can cut, can come off screens, and in general just can create off ball pressure and create some release valves for Houston's offense. As And Jabari can do a lot of the same things. So like if people want to pick Jabari here, it makes perfect sense to me. But I think that Jaden Ivey just has more juice to him as a prospect. I think he has a higher ceiling, and at this point in the draft, I think you take BPA.
Yeah, I somewhat agree. I think you could have gone either way. I have Ivy and Jabari in the same tier, and it's interesting. Um, it's a bit unknown how much I should, or people in general should view Kevin Porter Jr. as a long term piece. There are too many things to really even talk about in one podcast that are factors in his future with that team. But Jalen Green is definitely a long term piece for that team. And he's one of the best long term pieces at the guard spot in the league right now. And I think it can work with those two. I think they can play well off each other. Two of the most athletic guard prospects in recent memory. And, they could go either way here. I think that him and Jabari, you could, like, the same thing with Chet and Paolo, you could flip those two. And I would be okay with that. But do you have anything to say about it, Mark?
Yeah, it's interesting because, like you mentioned in talking about BPA and fit, part of what would like I think I would agree with Noah. I mean, it's not like sourced or anything, but I would imagine that KPJ isn't necessarily not that I should say he's not a part of Houston's long term plans, but I don't think that they're exactly married to him. As Noah kind of alluded to, it's interesting because I think like there's a way where the two of them could really work together, and like you mentioned, a lot of it comes down to talent and figuring out what that looks like. But I would probably be a little bit more weary of it. I don't know if I would have for sure gone Jabari here. It's a tough spot, especially the way that the draft would have fallen out already. But I don't think you can go wrong with this pick for sure.
Ideally, Houston probably lands, and we'll talk about this prospect later, but ideally, I think like Houston like lands like in 5 or 6, and they could draft someone like Duran, who I think fits like beautifully with them, for many reasons. But it's how it works, obviously, and I think at 3, and when you're a team that was as bad as Houston was, you kind of have to take best player available. Whether they think that's Ivy, whether they think that's Jabari, who knows? It might be Paolo by the time the draft rolls around in the real draft, for all we know. So I like the pick. You're obviously very high on Jaden Ivey, but that moves us to perhaps the most dysfunctional basketball team on the planet right now, the Sacramento Kings. Mark, you are picking for them 4th overall.
Yeah, I mean, this is easy. I was really hoping that Jabari would fall here, and I think Jabari is a perfect fit in Sacramento for what they want to do right now and long term. I do think that there are definitely going to be some issues with, okay, what is the playmaking necessarily looking on this team, looking like on this team on the ball, but I think, they showed a lot of things with Davion Mitchell and De'Aaron Fox in the backcourt running off of Domantas Sabonis that made sense last year, and I think adding somebody like Jabari who can help them, in resetting what their defense is right now, because Mike Brown's going to come in as a defensive coach for sure. I mean, they played some better defense as the year went on after the trade deadline. Still not very good, but I think he adds somebody at the 4 spot. Like their entire time last year, like they ended up going 3-guard lineup in a lot of their crunch times because they're either starting Mo Harkless, who could play defense fairly well on the wing, but was a non-factor offensively other than crashing the glass because his shot was just absent. Or you have Chimezie Metu out there who does bring some things as a shot taker and as a roller, but his defense is pretty all over the place at times. It's not super consistent. Like just having somebody who can be a steady 4th or 5th player on the court is huge, especially too. Like Harrison Barnes can actually play the 4 if you have Jabari. I think you just get a little bit more size. You get an actual point of attack stopper outside Davion Mitchell. I love the idea of this pick here.
I do too. Jabari Asher, I think you and I talked about this. We viewed him as like the most like seamless player in this draft. Like any team in like the top 10, like you could put him on that team, and like there's a way this works, and it's not gonna be like clumsy or anything like that. because of his baseline skills, in my opinion, where, he's one of arguably the two best shooters in this class. I have AJ ahead of him. But, he's 6'10" and is, legitimately a great shooter. Good point of attack defender. I do have some concerns about him, personally, about, maybe some of the stuff inside the arc, some of the self-creating stuff. But he has a high floor because of what he can do at that size. And for Sacramento, getting a player that has a decently high ceiling, because he's gotten so much better from his junior year of high school to now. It's not even the same prospect. So, what to say, you can't improve from there. But you also know, at the very least, you're likely going to get a contributor on your team. And Sacramento needs players like that. They had that in Halliburton. Obviously, they traded him. But, to get a player like Jabari at 4, I think, again, both Ivy or Jabari would be great picks for this team.
Yeah, I also like the pick. There's, a high floor to Jabari, and there are a lot of misconceptions about him as a prospect due to national media's coverage of him and branding him as things he's not. Like Chip on Twitter the other day, if both of you saw that, him responding to someone who touted him as a step back jumper sort of guy, when that is not Jabari's game in the slightest, but there is still a lot to him. He is depending on who you ask, the best or the second best shooter in the class at 6'10", with good lateral movement on defense and ability to really affect the defensive side of the ball, probably off rip. There's a lot to his game, and I think that baseline skills, as Noah mentioned, make him a high floor player right off the bat, and someone with a lot of room to grow, because he's so young. He doesn't strike me as someone who's done growing into himself physically. So a lot of those physical tools might be unlocked as his body develops.
I guess we'll move on to the 5th pick, which is Detroit. The review players I considered here. But I'm going to take AJ Griffin here. Many I'm a really big AJ Griffin guy. I've been a big AJ Griffin guy since he was in high school. And I think it just makes sense for him to go to a team like this, where, they have good, forwards. They have Sadiq Bey, who's, he's a bit I don't know what the word to describe it would be, jump shot happy or a bit trigger happy sometimes, but, I just don't, I get that, but, for me, with AJ, it just makes the most sense. I have him a tier above some of the other guys that I was thinking about. As far as positions go, it makes the most sense for him to go here. Among my top 5 guys, outside of Ivy, I think this is probably the best fit for realistic guys that could go here, because I don't think Jabari is going to fall past 3, more than likely. But, great shooter, one of the younger players in the draft, physical build, needs to play more physical than his build suggests, but I like him a lot. He's someone I think has a high ceiling. That's based off what I saw before college. That might be a bit, tuned down now because of the injuries that he suffered since then. I think that's a realistic possibility, but at the very least, you're getting somebody that can be a knockdown shooter, and still has a ton of room to grow, and is still pretty young as far as basketball age goes, especially compared to basically everyone else that's been picked at this point because of the injury. And I do think that having, an NBA background, his dad played in the NBA, his dad is coached in the NBA, being around NBA guys, he scrimmaged with the Raptors when they were in Tampa, so he knows how this works, and that might work to his advantage. But I do understand also the risk of AJ as well, but I'm willing to bet on what he's already shown and what I think he can be.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the on-ball stuff with him is also underplayed, and I think him and Cade together really complement each other's games. I think he can allow Cade to play off the ball just a slight bit more, but off the rip it will be minimal because he is still trying to get back to where he was in high school physically, and you can see that on tape. He is not someone who was relied on Duke to create off the ball, or off the dribble rather, but he is someone who is a nuclear shooter from self creation, off the ball. There is just a lot of dimensions to a shooting game, and our friend PD Webb had a great piece on his shooting ability and why he is potentially the best shooting freshman prospect of all time. And I think that he's someone who, while there are defensive questions, I think he will provide enough on offense to counter or to be able to make up for his lack of defensive juice there. And I do think there's even a way for him to get to being a passable defender.
Mark, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I necessarily agree as much about his on-ball juice potentially. Like I do like the fit here and what he could look like alongside Cade, but I definitely have more reservations about who he could be on the ball. But like you mentioned, I mean, I think he's the best shooter in the draft. Um, he's a smart basketball player too. Like obviously, in a basketball sense, like it's not bad wording from my end, but like in terms of just relocation, cutting, like he knows where to be. He knows how to really optimize himself as an outlet, and so I like what you said about making things easier on Cade for sure, and I definitely view it the same way.
Yeah, by on ball, I'm more so meant like as a tertiary guy. I don't view him as someone who will be breaking dudes off the dribble, but
Mm-hmm.
there were a
He
couple
can
of
create
flashes
off
at
movement.
Duke.
He can create a
Yeah.
little bit off movement. It's not like he's just a catch and shoot guy. Like
Yeah,
he's
for
someone
sure.
that can catch, sidestep, catch, step back, stuff like that. He
Mm-hmm.
can
Yeah.
put a few combos together every once in a while. And I made the pick because the other players thinking about for this pick. I'm just not as sure about him. We'll talk about him later. Um, but I think it's a great fit. But that moves us to pick 6, which is held by the Indiana Pacers. So, Asher, who do you have them taking?
So with Indiana, I think after AJ gets picked, for me, there's a tier of guys who all kind of blend together as far as talent wise goes. And I don't think there's like a explicit BPA here. I think that you kind of choose forfeit slash BPA, and there's no standout guy in this tier for me. So I'm gonna take someone who I think would fit well in Indiana, Keegan Murray. He is someone who has good off the shooting or good shooting off of catch and shoots. He has made tough shots at Iowa. He is someone who is a good off the ball mover, can probably have good chemistry with Tyrese Halliburton doing that. Mark, you and Caitlin Cooper wrote a great piece at Indie Cornrows about him. It is one of the better pieces I've seen on Keegan.
Thank you.
You guys talked about how he would really get into the nitty gritty and do the little things and be a complete guy, kind of off rip. And while he might not have the star potential of a Paolo, of a Chet, or the excitement of a Jalen Duren on defense, he does fill a lot of niches. He can distract guys with his off the ball movement. He is someone who has shown a knack to hit tough jumpers at times, though it's not something I'd rely on him for necessarily. He's not someone who will be a self creating guy, more than likely. But Tyrese Halliburton really, I think, opens up avenues to allow a prospect like that to thrive. And I think he's someone who would be really good in a Pacer system next to the guys they already have.
Yeah, I agree that was a great piece by Mark and Caitlin. Um, but also with Keegan, and specifically with the Pacers are the most seamless team because of Halliburton, because Halliburton can play basically next to anyone. because of his role versatility. But Keegan, I think he's one of the safer players in this draft. He's a player that, you know, I think at the very least will be a contributor on a team. And I think he can be a very good starter for a long time, which, it's a real accomplishment in the NBA. A bit older, but I do think that he could be a borderline all-star. The scoring is interesting because of the jump he took from his freshman year to his sophomore year, where he was playing behind a lot of guys his freshman year. Specifically, the consensus National Player of the Year, Luka Garza, and Joe Weiskamp. But I like this pick a lot. I don't think you can make many bad picks for the Pacers unless you just reached completely down the board.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. Like I like the Keegan fit. I think that a lot of fans are going to be a little bit disillusioned by it. I don't really particularly love the rap that he's gotten as a player. Like I think it's tough because obviously you look at some of the guys ahead of him that um, I don't even love just doing like the upside stuff because I really think there's a lot of upside with Keegan too, even though he is a little bit older. Like it's always important to mention, like yes, he's older, but he's also more ready to play on court. And I think that's a really important thing to bring up. Like he's going to get, just because of what his floor as a player is right now, he's going to get a lot more opportunities to make mistakes and grow. And I think inherently that means a lot more than it tends to get credit for. But especially too, like you mentioned, I love what he could be alongside Tyrese Halliburton. A lot's just going to depend on what the rest of their front court situation is. But I mean, I'm right there with you. I think he's going to be a really good NBA player and have some all-star upside as well if things really hit right.
Yeah, and that moves us on to pick 7, which is all about the Blazers. And Mark, that's your pick. And there are a few
Yeah,
Blazers on the board.
this one is easy for me. As much as I would love, like, absolutely love to go Jalen Duren here, that's not what this Blazers team is right now. I think this is pretty easily for me. I'm taking Johnny Davis. I know that some people are going to look at that and be like, well, they just traded CJ, so why would you do this? Different players, man. Like obviously Johnny's a 2 guard, but I think he's more of a 2-3 hybrid. Like he can play up because he's got. I mean, he measured like just about 6'6" at the combine the other day, and he's got the strength to play up at the 3-2 in some lineups, obviously. But I think it's more just he is an extremely good guard defender. He's going to function really well off the ball. Obviously, there are going to be some questions about his shot. I'm just not that worried about it, given what his context was like at Wisconsin and how I think he's going to translate. And this is a Portland team that's trying to win right now. Like especially too with maybe if Nurkic isn't there, you're more willing to take on Duren. But given who, like I think that Jalen Duren is like a top 5, top 6 prospect in this draft. But for where this team is at right now, I just don't think it would be an awesome pick for him or for the team because they need to be good right now, and he's not really in a position to do that for them yet. And I think Johnny will definitely bring that from day one.
Yeah. I think that with the context, like you said, of the guard, like you need a guard that can play right away. I have Sadon ahead of him, but as a prospect because of the upside. But and again, like you said with Duren, like you can't worry about like can he play right away, and you need guys that can, and that's what you get with Johnny. Johnny can play right away. Like right away, he's gonna be a solid defender. He's gonna be somebody that's gonna be physical. He's gonna be somebody that I think plays well with not only Dame but Simons as well, who they've invested into. I think I thought he would go a bit lower. And I was honestly hoping that he would make it to 8 because he would have been my pick for the Pelicans for similar reasons of their contending team. But Davis is like Keegan. I think 2 of the players that are ready to contribute right away, especially outside the top 5. Like I think those are 2 guys. Like they can play right away. I feel similarly about Duren, but like you said, with their kids there. It's going to be a bit harder to kind of integrate him than it would be Johnny because he can run 3-guard lineups. But I like the pick.
Yeah, I think that he complements what they're doing there well. I think he adds to the perimeter defense that they're building there with Josh Hart, with guys that they're probably going to target in the offseason. I think they're going to try and get a better perimeter defense than what they have had in years past. And I think that he would fill a gap there. He someone who showed at Wisconsin a good deal of defense as well as shot creation and all that kind of jazz in a reduced role in Portland because he was the entire Wisconsin offense at times this season. But I think in a reduced role, I think he will be able to focus more on developing his jump shot out to the 3 point line off the catch. I think he'll be able to focus more on like coming off screens and like cutting and using his ridiculous strength to be able to create leverages in those sort of situations off of like curls and all that kind of thing. So yeah, I like the pick there.
Yeah, so that puts me at 8, and this is kind of a tough spot because I was kind of banking on Johnny being here at 8. Um,
Mm.
and, I still think you'll get the Pelicans, and I'm still, like, all in on Zion. I know, like, the injury concerns, but he's just too good for me not to bet all in, and they're a team that's looking to get guys that could compete. So that likely knocks like someone like Satan or Dyson out, who would be guards. I think they just need someone that can kind of play off what they have already, which is Ingram and Zion. CJ's there, obviously he gets on ball reps. It may be a bit of a weird pick. I'm gonna go Benedict Mathurin here. Um, I just think again he's the most ready to contribute. I would love to have gone Duren here because I could talk about Duren for hours, but Benedict's somebody that I think at his best is someone that plays off of others. And the Pelicans need guys that can play off of others the most. And at this point, I think Benedict is somebody that, another one of these guys, I think it's 3 straight players in a row where I kind of know what he's going to be. There isn't a lot of like gray area of like, oh, like how does he fit in? I think that there is some on-ball stuff with him, but he's definitely someone I think thrives playing off of others at the next level. And there's no better situation than that. You have Ingram, you have CJ, you have, Zion, obviously, who's, a generational player when he's healthy. Um, you know, I think that actually any of these three that just went would be probably my pick for New Orleans, just because I think they need someone that can contribute right away, maybe play off of others, and I think that's what all three of these guys can do. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say about this pick.
Yeah, no, I like what you said. Like, I think Johnny would be my ideal pick for the Pelicans, just because I think he brings a lot more as an actual creator and passer than I think Benedict does right now. And personally, that I think he will. But I still think you add somebody who's solid defending 1 through 3, or at least has like capability to do it, and be a spot up shooter and do some stuff off movement too. And maybe he can, as he hopefully tightens up his handle and can work on potentially doing some secondary pick and roll stuff. Like, I think, like you mentioned, like very much like in the same vein as Trey Murphy, I think he's somebody who could be a viable rotation guy right now with upside to be more. And I think that's, even though I think this team really needs ball handling more, that's something that they can find out other ways in the offseason through maybe trades.
Yeah,
Yeah, both of you covered the bases. He's someone who we kind of know the mold of the prospect he's going to be, and there's not a ton of playmaking, but at this point on the board, there isn't a ton of guys who would be ready to contribute right away with the ball handling. So I think he makes a lot of sense there.
Yeah, and that moves us to pick 9, which is the Spurs. And Ashley, that's your pick.
Yeah, the Spurs are going to take Jalen Duren and they're going to run. Jalen Duren is a very Spursy sort of pick. He's someone who has nothing but good things said about him off the court. On the court, he is a defensive beast. He is able to play in a lot of different types of pick and roll coverages, probably the best being drop, but he had games in Memphis where they would play at the level, and he played well there. He isn't necessarily a switch all big, but that term gets thrown around way too often. I think you can get away with switching him every now and again and be fine with that. He on offense shows some passing potential. The flashes there are nice. He's not going to be creating mid-range shots or anything for him, but he's a solid role man. He can run DHOs, and I think he fits what the Spurs have going on with them.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too because like the Spurs have like I don't want to say openly shopped Pirtle, but like his name's been thrown around in trades for a minute. So he's a very nice NBA player, like a really good player, like borderline all defense. Somebody who took a massive step this season was really fantastic for them. But I think in terms of looking about what future upside could be, like I think I'm very under here, especially with where this pick is at. Um, yeah, I can't follow you here with this one.
Yeah, I think like we talked about it. I think if he falls past like 6 or 7 in the real draft, like you starting to get into like still territory because you just don't find players like this. That have, he was probably physically ready to play in the NBA from like a build standpoint when he was playing at Montfort Academy. He's somebody that the way he thinks the game on defense, the way he reads coverages, like he's just so smart on that end of the floor. And from what I've heard, like just a world-class human being, mature, and on top of this, he's the second youngest player in the draft. You don't usually say like all those things about a prospect and then say, oh yeah, they're gonna be like 18 when the season starts still. I don't think I told it on this podcast, but I definitely said it on Twitter. I had trouble convincing my dad that he was only like 17 when the season started.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I love Duran. He's my favorite player in this draft. When I eventually do my first film breakdown for the cycle, he's going to be the first one. I've had the script ready since like the end of March, and I'm not gonna drag this on much longer because this is gonna be like 2 hours if I said everything I wanted to say about Duran. But this is a really good pick and a very Spurs pick as well. Like this is a pick that you expect them to make.
Yeah. And with that brings us to the Washington Wizards. And Mark, you are the Wizards GM.
Yeah, this one is tough, man, because there are like a lot of the players who I think you'd want to take for the Wizards went earlier, and I'm not super comfortable with a lot of like this. This team is weird. I don't really know what to make out of everything with Bradley Beal. It seems like he's going to be back. I mean, he can sign the most money there, but like I mean, exactly like if he ends up doing like a sign and trade or something this offseason, then it's very confusing. And obviously they did the Porzingis trade, so they're. It seems like they're trying to compete this next year, which is why this is so tough. Like
because they have they have forwards already.
They have way too many. Like I mean, I don't want to say too many forwards, but it's like you can't really feasibly look and be like, I'll take Tari or Sohan here because where are the minutes coming from is just a wonderful question to ask. So I'll take Dyson Daniels here. I don't love this pick, not because I don't like Dyson. I think Dyson's interesting. I think this is a little high for him, but I'm not. I think I'd be more comfortable taking him than like say Ty Washington here.
Definitely.
So I'm gonna go with that. Hopefully they rectify some of their ball handling stuff in the offseason outside of this pick, but I'm going here just because I think Dyson adds more of kind of what they've been looking at. Wings who can bring something defensively, have some passing chops. I'm not as in on who Dyson can be as a creator as I think some are. But I think, as his shot comes around, especially with his passing flashes, I really like him as another wing in Washington.
Yeah, I think that with Dyson's a player. I think this is true for a lot of Ignite players. That they'll probably go relatively high, or at least a bit higher than maybe some like you have them on your board, or where you think they might go because NBA teams can just go and watch them. Like it's not like college where it's like like you have to like there's certain rules and this and that. Like you can just go like teams know about these guys and. I think there's a chance Dyson goes a bit higher than maybe 10 in the real draft because of that. It's not the only factor, obviously, but I like Dyson. I think he's the best Ignite prospect, specifically for this class. But for the Wizards, like it's a hard pick to make. When you
Mhm.
look at because like what they have players that can fit. Like, oh, you want to if you bring back Beal, you can play right away. But they're at positions that they already kind of have. Um, where then some of the players like they may not be ready to contribute right away, but they have a lot of upside. But what if Beal does come back and he wants to like compete? I don't know what Beal thinks. I'll be honest with you. He's a hard player to get a read on. But Dyson, I think he's that perfect middle point. He's really young for the class, but he's also someone I think can contribute just based off the fact that he does a bunch of things at a solid level.
Yeah, I mean, I think Dyson is a really good connector piece. He's not necessarily someone who I trust as like a primary, but I think with the options left on the board, and uh, I think that he's someone who can provide that defense and just kind of be a connecting piece to hopefully a bigger team.
Yeah, so that moves us to the 11th pick, which is the New York Knicks. And there are players on the board. There are a lot of players on the board. Um, I don't know if Julius Randle's going to be on this team. I don't. But I think you kind of have to until it actually happens. And this is a philosophy I always have, regardless of what kind of mock draft I'm doing. You have to assume that they're going to be on a team until they aren't. Unless like they're actively trying to stop him and it's like actively known. And it's tough because I think they need a point guard more than anything. I love Deuce McBride. But I think like I don't know if he's ever gonna make a full time point for them or if he's ever gonna play. If Thibs ever does play him, but there aren't many good point guards. I wouldn't say good, but there aren't point guards I would take with the 11th pick on the board. Um, and I definitely think that they're in a position where they're kind of stuck. So I think you can kind of take an upside swing, but I also want a player that fits. Um, and this may be a bit high. I know it's not going to be for Ashley, but I'm going to go Jeremy Sohan here. Just because, I'm under these, I guess because, like, I don't know. I just think that, like, he's someone I know is going to be solid in the NBA, but he's also relatively young. I think there's a bit more offensive upside. I don't know if you said it, Mark, but, like, some people don't see it, and I understand, but, like, I think he's a decent passer. I think he's going to be an all-world defender. And, it's just a weird fit with New York. And there's so many ways I could have gone with this pick.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting spot to be in. But I think Sohan, with his defensive instincts, especially for how young he is and his feel for the game, I think that's the right pick there. He has some playmaking chops, as you mentioned. I think he's going to be a really good connector at the next level.
Yeah, I think this one's tough. Like I like Sohan, but I probably would have gone, Tari here or somebody who has a little bit more of a shooting rep just because of like you mentioned, like I think this Knicks team really needs like a not a full time three, like I think that's the wrong way to put it, but like I think to me Sohan is much more like gonna have to play the four on offense, at least to start. Given where his shot's at, I feel a lot more comfortable about where Tari's shot is at and where it's headed.
Mm-hmm.
So I could maybe see that a little bit more, but
I definitely
I still don't
considered.
think it's a bad pick at all.
I definitely considered Terry. There are a lot of players I considered, and again, it's
Mm-hmm.
a tough spot to be in. Ideally, Dyson would be on the board here because Dyson would have been an awesome pick.
Mm-hmm.
He would have been like the pick. Like, oh, I run the code up at that point. Um, but it's tough. Like I think they would be in a much better spot if this was last year's point guard class at the 11th pick. But you know, I don't know what the Knicks. No one knows what the Knicks are going to do, but you know, I guess we'll move on to the 12th pick, which is once again the OKC Thunder, and I think that's your pick, Ashley.
It is, and I'm going to take Shaden Sharp before people realize that he's fallen this far. And he's the mystery box of this draft, but he has a lot of upside. He is pretty athletic. He's 6'7", I want to say. and has a lot of shooting potential. He showed a lot of that on EYBL, on the grind, or not the grind session, but he showed a lot of stuff, and he was a late declaration to the draft, or late addition to the cycle, rather. But with, you know, limitations of not always being able to get to the rim, not being able to play make as effectively as like a lead guard. There are definitely some questions about him, but I think with OKC, you take him and you don't look back.
Yeah, he fell this far. He's higher than my board than 12. I'll say that much. It just so happened to be for me that like the fit was weird with some like the team like the Knicks and kinda the Wizards, but definitely like probably 7 through 10, like even 7 through 10 for me. Um, these are teams that I felt like either had a better like fit with a player. They were either higher on my board or they just need someone that can contribute. And I don't know if Sadon's ready to contribute because I've only seen him play at like EYBL, some of the early high school circuit stuff before he left for Kentucky. So it is hard to like project what it can be. I have concerns about his burst. He's not a very quick athlete attacking the basket.
Mm-hmm.
Some like that's like the big thing. Like, what makes like these like super athletic guards like Jaden Ivey, like Jalen Green, like Anthony Edwards is the like especially for Ant like the strength, but like how quick they are attacking the basket. Like Jalen Green doesn't have a great handle right now, but he's a dangerous slasher because of the fact that he's so quick. Like how quick he gets to the rim is incredible. I just don't quite see that with Sadon. I like the shooting potential. I think he has a chance to be a very good player. I think he made the right decision to enter this draft because I think he's going to go a lot higher than the 12th pick. I think top 5, if I was betting on where prospects are going, I would bet on him probably going top 5. He just happened to fall to 12 in this mock draft because of maybe some other team needs.
Yeah, and with that, that takes us to the 13th pick, which is Mark for the Charlotte Hornets.
Yeah, this one, I'm not entirely sure where I want to go here. But I actually know. I think, man, this one is tough. I kind of really, this Hornets team is so funky, man. Like, they're just, I want to feel better about them than I do, but I don't.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, they're a hard team. They have 2 picks in the first round, which I didn't know. So there's a chance they do trade up, but we're not doing trades in this. But it's a hard pick. It's a hard.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I think they really need to shore up what they're doing defensively, and I think part of that is going to be through obviously having a new coach, a new system, figuring that out. I really think they need to figure out where they're at the back line. Like, this is a team that would be so good for Jalen Duren. Like, just imagining him and Lamelo together in the open court would be pretty amazing. But
he's not going to make it to this point.
I'm going to go Tari Eason here. I think some will quibble with that, and that's fair. You could probably go Mark Williams here and feel solid about it, but I think with where this team is at right now, I don't know if I view them as being a plug-in a rookie big and see how it goes. I think that they were a team that had been in trade talks for Jakob Poeltl or Miles Turner, and this is like very much so to me. Like, as you're reshaping the team, I think that's the kind of move you have to make this summer. So keeping in mind, like, it's not that I'm trying to eschew that, but I think Tari does solve some of the issues that they'll have on the perimeter too.
It's funny because I wanted them last year to draft Jalen Johnson at 11. They didn't. They had a chance to get him at 19 as well. They didn't take him either. But, like, someone... I think they're different players, obviously. But, I think Tari's a better shooter than Johnson is. But, that forward that... I think both of them, I felt similarly about both of their, like, defensive, like, upside. Because I think Johnson had a lot of defensive upside, and I think Tari can be a really good defender. A big would be nice. You could go Mark Williams here. Kind of wish he did, because I would have taken Tari at 14 for Cleveland. But I like Tari. Tari's one of the in my opinion, the 10 best players in this draft. I think there's a chance he goes higher than this. Portland's a team I would consider him maybe for. Definitely like we talked about with the Knicks. I think that's a landing spot for him. I just think that like the combination of some of the scoring stuff he can do and definitely the defense that he has and the athleticism that he has, I think that like again he's going to be a good player.
Yeah, I mean, with Tari, I recently looked at him for Denver Stiffs, and he provides a lot of defense. I think his aggression can really jumpstart some stuff like culture wise for the Hornets, and get people to lock in more and like really dig in on that end. And as far as offense, he's a good shooter. Maybe slightly below league average to start, and then he has some passing stuff. And I think in a reduced role, he will be able to provide a lot for the Hornets right off the bat. And that takes us into the 14th pick, which is the Cavs, and Noah is making that pick.
So it would have been I would have plugged Tari in here, but that can't happen now, obviously. It's a tough pick because I think they're kind of set at a lot of their positions. They're fine at point guard. Garland, someone I think has like all NBA potential. They're fine with their big spots. They have Allen. They have Mobley. I think you start looking at the shooting guard spot, and the small forward spot. Now I will say this: I was a bit more encouraged by what Okoro did down the stretch than I think most people are.
I think if saying erase the playoffs is doing a little too much, but like he really figured some things out in the back half of the season, looked better. I'm not out on him by any means. So I'm right there with you, Noah. It was his second year last year.
Yeah.
Like,
so in his second year in like unideal circumstances entering the league, I think people forget like this. It was a sort of off season for just about everyone going into this season. First rounds ending in June. That almost never happens. It's a hard pick because I've liked what I've heard about Malachi Branham, but I actually want to watch him more before I feel like really confident in giving my thoughts on him. And, I'm debating doing it. I think you guys probably have watched him more, but I'm actually going to take Malachi Branham here in this, because I just think that like it's hard for them to make a pick. For me, like really, it's kind of a cop-out pick because like I've heard like really good things about him. I know some people have him top 10. I think he's going to go in this range, and I just feel better. I just think that he fits a position more than most other people I think might go in this range. I considered someone like Jovic, but I don't know how he quite fits with that team. But I've heard enough things from people I trust to like take him at back end lottery.
Yeah, he is someone with shot creation upside. Defensively, he is pretty sound. He's not anything too special on that end, but he shouldn't be a disaster either. And he had a lot of good stuff to his game. I haven't seen a ton of him myself, but I've heard good things, and the games I have seen, he's impressed me.
Yeah, I've watched Malachi for a while because he played high school ball about a half hour from where I live. So I've seen him since he was at St. Vincent St. Mary's. I'm not like I like him a lot. He's a top 10 prospect for me, but he's a guy who like very much so. I want to see him go to the right place because I'm not quite there defensively. I think he is somebody who is really going to have to. He's just going to have limitations because he's got really broad shoulders. He kind of doesn't have a ton of bend, if we're being honest, getting skinny around screens. So that would be interesting to see. But, I mean, like Asher mentioned, the shot creation is for real. Even if he's not creating separation, his release point, his strength, his ability to generate, just the small advantages to operate in a phone booth. Like, I think that scares some people off. But to me, I view him as one of the better shooting upside guys in this draft. So I would be pretty comfortable with this pick, even if I'm not super sure how it looks in a couple of years. Just, give it like I'm not it's hard to project with the Cavs. Like
they have two guards.
they need more shot creation though, so I don't really think you can go super wrong here. But it would very much so limit what happens with Colin Sexton, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I don't want to say I had that in mind because like it's an unknown. It's kind of unknown with Karras. I don't know what to feel about Karras at this point.
I know how to feel about Karras. Go ahead.
Like I don't know like. When I'm like, I don't know how I feel about him. Like, I just don't know like if he really contributes to winning basketball. Like, we saw it in the play, sure. And like, I maybe it's just like maybe I was overreacting, but I just felt like, like he kind of was a ball stopper. Like, it kind of like disrupted the flow a bit. Talented player, but he'd get you 51. I saw him get 51 on my team, but how does he fit with the team? You get someone that's relatively like going to be 19 in his rookie year. Cavs team was looking to compete a lot earlier than we thought. I think when the season started, we were thinking Cavs maybe another top 5 pick. So to see how far they've come at that point is pretty interesting. That moves to the fifth. We'll try to get through these quicker as you have the 15th pick.
Yeah. Yep. Gonna take Mark Williams. He is someone who is a good drop big. He has some questions about his ability to play at the level or, slower feet, but I think he will be fine-ish in a lot of those scenarios. Not like the best, but he has a 7'7" wingspan and is able to block anything this side of Mississippi most of the time. So I feel pretty good about him showing up their defense. He's a good rim roller and someone who can create rim pressure for LaMelo in a pick and roll sort of scenario. And I think complements what they got going on.
If they get those two, I think it's going to be a very good draft. Get Tari at 13, Mark at 15. Do you have anything quick you want to say?
I like getting Mark Williams here. I still think that I view them much more as like needing to figure out their front court with a veteran. But I think it's all just dependent, especially too, like what has happened with Kai Jones this next year. Like obviously spent the majority of his time in the G League. I have so many questions about where the Hornets are at prospect wise. That's without even mentioning JT Thor and James Bouknight. It's just there's a lot going on there. But I don't fault the pick at all. I like it.
And you're on the clock at 16, and I believe that is the Hawks at 16. So you want to take it?
The Hawks at 16. This is a great question because I feel like they're a team that definitely needs more creation, but also like this one's tough. Also, I think
they might be more willing to take an upside guy because they're known not to play their rookies like that. So
that is fair. No, I think here is where I'm going to take Ochai Agbaji. To me, he's a player who I think makes sense for them, needing more in terms of like, obviously he's not somebody who I think is going to necessarily be perfect in this role, but somebody who ideally is going to become somebody who obviously a very, very good shooter in this draft. I think that almost gets undersold at times. Like he can do it off movement. He's a very good catch and shoot player. Has the athleticism. I believe in what he's going to be defensively at the next level against 2s and 3s. And I think, like, again, this is a team that's looking for guys who can play right now. Obviously, you want upside. Like, I'm not trying to undersell that. And I think you could go any number of ways here. But for me, I would probably look at going with Ochai Agbaji.
Yeah, for a team that was looking to compete, obviously. They kind of underperformed a bit, but I think that had a lot to do with injuries and a lot of unforeseen circumstances. But, a player I think can probably contribute right away. You have anything quick to say, Assy?
Boy can shoot the pill. That's what he's going to do.
That's moves us to 17 with Houston. Now, originally, like when I usually was do these like mock drafts by myself, they take one of the bigger players at 3. They don't usually take guard, and usually I have the guard go here. It's an interesting. I like a lot of the young players. I love Jalen Green, even though I think Mobley should have gone ahead of him, but I still think the world of Jalen Green. Josh Christopher was one of my favorite players in that draft class. Usman, I love Usman. I love Sengun's been very fun to watch. I think at this point you kind of can get away with taking a bit of an upside swing. I'm gonna take Osman Jang at this pick. Meteoric rise for me at least, because his start to the season in the NBL was just terrible. You can tell he was overwhelmed. He's super young, but once he started to figure it out, he figured it out, and I think there's a chance he goes lottery now. And I think at this point in the draft, like, you know, at pick 17, you have a team like Houston, you can't worry about like best like fit, and I think you need to take guys that have upside, and I think Jang has a lot of upside at pick 17.
Yeah, I totally agree. I like a lot of the passing flashes he had. He moves very fluidly. There are obviously questions because he's a project pick, but his shot came along. He showed a lot of growth throughout the season, so that indicates a good development curve for him.
You have anything you want to say, Mark?
No, I agree with everything you guys are getting at.
And that moves us to pick what?
18,
the
and
Bulls.
that will be my pick. My pick with the Bulls. I'm gonna take EJ Liddell here. I think he's ready to contribute.
Bastard. I love EJ, but yeah, no, this is honestly like this is the exact pick I would have done. So I appreciate this one.
Yeah, he's ready to contribute right away, and with the Zach LaVine stuff coming out recently, there might be a lack of competing there. But assuming that he does stay, I think EJ really complements a lot of what they're doing there. He's a 4 who provides spacing and a solid defensive foundation.
Mm-hmm. I like the pick a lot. That's probably the pick I would have made as well. Mark, you're on the clock with the Timberwolves pick at 19.
Yeah, this is where we're starting to dip into our bag a little bit and get a little crazy. And this is interesting because I kind of want to make a little bit of an out of pocket pick. I don't think it's out of pocket that much, but I mean, this team is tough, man. Like when you look at them, and when I look at what I think Minnesota is, I think it's just more two-way players, honestly. Like especially in the front court. Like as much as I love Jared Vanderbilt, I do think you saw, especially in the playoffs, some of the downsides of how he could be schemed out, particularly on offense. I think you can look at at the backcourt and say maybe you can get more if somebody who's getting to the rim. But for me, I don't know. I'm playing with this one in my head because I really want to get funky. I think I'm going to take Leonard Miller here. We're being completely honest.
Oh, wow. Okay.
This is not an ideal situation for Leonard. Actually, no, I'm not going to take Leonard. This is me if I was running. No, I can't take Leonard here. I'm sorry. Because now the more that I think about it, this would be I don't think this would be a great fit for him.
It's a tough.
I'm going to take Jake LaRavia. I'll take Jake LaRavia here for the Wolves because I think especially like the whole sell for Jake LaRavia to me is like a combo forward who has really solid movement skills. I love what he's going to be able to bring defensively in time, and I trust him becoming a shooter alongside what he brings as a passer already. Like he shot well on pretty low volume this past year, but I think he's somebody who you can picture. Like I'm not saying that they're out on Jared Vanderbilt by any stretch of the imagination, but I think getting another guy like you saw how much at times like with power line they can be on their shots falling. Like getting somebody like Jake who can be a positive on either end in time, while bringing more as a passer too. I think that would be really useful for them.
Yeah, I think that's a really good pick. I would have been really shocked if you took Leonard Miller here.
I wanted to. I love Leonard, so I thought about it.
I do too.
Yes.
I would have considered him at 18, but if Liddell wasn't on the board. But I haven't watched too much Jake LaRavia. That's one of like the big ones on the list that I have to get to. I've been a bit behind on my draft stuff this season. I'm not gonna lie. But Ashley, you seem to really like him a lot.
Yeah, I see him as one of the better connectors in the draft. The passing is impressive to me. The defense, he communicates well. He's a great team defender. He is a solid on-ball defender as well. And I buy into the shot. So I don't think there's much to dislike about Jake LaRavia. He's also really good at drawing fouls, which is pretty funny to me. But that takes us to the 20th pick, which will be
the Spurs.
Noah. Yep.
It's an interesting pick because I don't think the Spurs are going to be good. I really don't. And they have another first-round pick from Boston because of the Dirk White trade. And I don't know why. And maybe it's just because of like the past and like maybe the past few picks they've made. I'm going to be the one that gets a little crazy here. And I'm going to take Leonard Miller here for the Spurs. There's a part of me, and maybe it's just because of what happened with the Primo pick, that wouldn't shock me to take him at 9. I would not take him at 9, but I think at 20, I think like that's starting to become the range for him. Interesting skill set. That's the best way I can describe him, like based off what I saw him do. And he does interesting stuff at 6'10", I guess, as a passer, as a defender. Super young still. The youngest player in the draft, second straight year. We've had a Canadian be the youngest player in the draft. And if it happens in real life, another Spurs that the Spurs draft the youngest player in the draft. I think they maybe could get him at 25, but I just wanted to capitalize on it right now. And
I said the name and you decided to jump.
I'm like,
copying his homework.
Like, I don't know. I like him a lot here. I feel like it's I picked that like I think like I would make for the Spurs if I was them, and it's also a pick I see the Spurs making if he's on the board at 20.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I don't personally buy that much into Leonard, but I definitely see the upside with him and see why people would take him. But yeah, any additional comments, Mark?
No, I laid it out in my excitement last pick. So yeah.
He's funky. That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's one of those things like I don't know if it's gonna work, but like if it does work, it's gonna be one of the most fun things to watch in basketball. Like it's just so interesting to me. But that puts you on the clock with the Nuggets pick. Did you set this up so you would get the Nuggets pick?
Yes, I did. And I set it up so I could select Marjon Beauchamp at number 21. He's someone who is able to move a lot off ball and defend, and that is exactly what the Nuggets need. They need defense. Marjon provides that. Not much more to
He's got that dog in him. He's got that dog.
Yeah.
Mark, do you have anything?
The got that dog in him meter is so high. It's unreal.
BNW.
I know. I love Marjon. Like one of my favorite dudes to watch. Just like in watching what he does, like he has that kind of really funky Seattle dribble that I absolutely love in prospects. I'm higher on him than I think most people tend to be. I really believe in him being a good NBA player. Obviously, the star upside can be questioned or whatever, but I just think we kind of worry about age a little too much at times. Like, he's going to be 21 when he starts his first season in the league, but also I wouldn't say that I don't care, but I think we're just kind of like,
I think that
you need good basketball players. He needs a good basketball player.
I don't think 21's too old either. That's the thing.
Oh, yeah,
but
once you start some people will say
about
it, but yeah.
I think like when you start talking about old, it's like 23, 24. Like that's like really when I started to think about it. But 21, like, and for someone that took a really unique path to the league to get here.
Yeah.
JUCO did, I forget, it was like some training for a year, end up with Ignite, which I think is becoming one of the most viable paths to the league. I like this pick a lot. Mark, you're on the clock now with Memphis's pick.
Yeah. This one's interesting because I think we just saw, again, kind of like talking about the Wolves, like you saw the need for more creation, I thought. Just more guys who can hang on both ends of the court while also being able to hit shots because, like, their shooting is a real issue right now. And I'm interested to see how they try and address it. I'm interested to see how I try and address it, too, because I don't have an answer yet. This one's tough. Like, I mean, it'll be interesting too because Tyus Jones is a free agent this summer, if I remember correctly. So that brings up questions for sure. I think I'm going to go Blake Wesley here. I am not like the biggest. I don't want to say that I'm not a fan of Blake's, but I think he's somebody who, in a couple of years, like he has that kind of his defensive profile is really good. He knows like I don't think he's going to be like an instant contributor on that end, but like somebody who I think will have positive plays as a defender as a rookie, which says something. A lot's just going to be how you develop the shot where it comes along. And how you view what he can be in time attacking inside the arc. Like he can get to the rim, no problem, but the finishing, he doesn't really have a lot of pop around the rim, very much so a below the rim athlete right now. But I think you can trust him developing counters and getting better with that and making solid decisions. So to me, I think he's somebody who could make a lot of sense for this Memphis team.
Potential pre-draft guy, because this is someone that I believe if he goes back, has a really good year at Notre Dame, maybe goes lottery next year. So keep that in mind, I guess. Asher, do you have any thoughts?
Good POA defender, good shot creator. That's a lot of what Memphis needs. Good pick.
So that puts Brooklyn on the clock. And Brooklyn's a spot where you just don't know if the rookie's going to play that much. Kessler played a lot, which I was a bit shocked by. But I get shocked by it based off where like he was like pegged to the situation. But like, as a player, I wasn't too shocked by it. He was like someone I think can contribute. You know, I guess they're in a position to kind of just like take swing at best available, and probably right now that player is Nikola Jovic, right?
Right.
I love
Absolutely.
Jovic. I think he could go higher. I have him higher on my board than 23. Interesting movement skills, to say the least. Specifically,
Yeah, very
defense.
interesting.
But I think he could be a great connector. You know, I don't know if he would contribute right away, but I think there's a world where he does on that Nets team. A Nets team where we don't know what's really going on. But, you know, this is a good value pick. I know, actually, you have him close to the top 10. I have him more mid-first, like 15-ish range. But, you know, either way for both of us, like to get someone like that's in that range on our boards, personally, at like pick 23, that's pretty good value. Actually, you want to take the next pick?
Sure. That would be the Milwaukee Bucks. And I think here you kind of look for someone who sort of fills a similar niche to Chris Middleton, not quite to the level of Chris Middleton, obviously, at this range in the draft, but someone who can shoot, defend, and kind of fill in the gaps of Chris Middleton because he has dealt with injuries in the past. And obviously, this postseason, they missed his production, especially against the Celtics. And I think there are a couple guys that you could take here. Wendell Moore, Christian Brown are the two that come to mind. And I think I personally lean more towards Wendell Moore. He's someone who doesn't have a ton of like shot creation ability or anything like that. He has some, but not like a ton. And he also has some playmaking chops. You know, he does a little bit of everything. I think his defense is pretty good. It might get a little overstated at times, but I think he provides a good amount of it. And I think with Milwaukee's development staff, they can really make him shine.
Yeah, safe pick, someone that can contribute right away. Relatively young for a junior as well. So I think it's a good pick. What's that? Pick 25, which is the Spurs. This is the pick they got from the Celtics, from the Dirk White trade. They took Duran at 9, Leonard Miller at 20. And it's an interesting pick because everyone that's on the board at this point, I feel like, you know, they're going to be a backup. Like, I think Duran, like, with Jakob Poeltl, like, we'll see what happens with him. Like, there's a chance he starts. Leonard Miller's not going to start. But I think you just got to have to draft for best available upside. You know, you get the idea. You know, if I didn't take Miller at 20, I would have taken Patrick Baldwin Jr. here.
Yeah.
And man, this is a tougher pick than I thought. Not just because like, and I guess because he's fallen at this point. Like, I think he might go higher just based off how good he's been at the combine. I'm gonna go Jalen Williams here from Santa Clara.
Yeah.
Big riser in the combine. Probably the biggest riser of anyone from this combine.
For sure.
I started watching him. I like what I've seen so far.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, he might be like the one that starts right away for them. Just based off like he's the most, like, I would probably say Duren's the most NBA ready of them just because of the physicality, like his understanding, stuff like that. Like, I think like Pop's gonna love Duren, but I like Jalen Williams at this point in the draft. Like, I think we probably could have had him going a bit higher than this. But again, it's how the board falls. And when you have three people with three different kind of philosophies, stuff's gonna happen.
Yeah, for me, Jalen is someone who has played himself into lottery contention on my board. He is someone who really impresses me when I watch his full games. He has a good feel for the game. He has a good shot. He has good playmaking potential. He navigates screens really well, and he's just someone who's really impressed me in the stuff I've watched. I wouldn't be surprised if he moved up even further on my board than what he's already at.
Yeah, he's in the 20s right now, and he might move up a little bit. It would not shock me if he's floating with like late lottery by the day draft day rolls around. But you're on the clock with Dallas, though.
Yeah, with Jalen, if I had the Hawks pick, I probably would have taken him at 16. I think
it kind of slipped my mind because the site I'm using, like they haven't a bit down the board, so I only see what's in front of me. So like but Dallas is on the clock at 16. Who do you have them going with?
Yeah, so with Dallas, people talk a lot about needing a secondary handler, secondary ball shot creator, and someone who can, alleviate some of the Luka's ball handling responsibilities and let him take a break every now and again. And I think that the best player for that on the board right now is Terquavian Smith out of NC State. He's someone with, he's someone with a decent amount of questions about his finishing, and those are more than fair. I've watched games where his touch is just way off. He's really thin right now, but I think, a lot of getting into an NBA weight room will fix some of the weight issues with him, but I do think the finishing is a real issue. It'll be interesting to see how he navigates that at the next level, but he's someone who provides a lot of pull-up shooting, a lot of shot creation, good handle, decent passing, and isn't the worst defender in the world.
Yeah, I have the same questions you do about Terquavian Smith. But again, it's one of the things, like, he does like one thing like well enough to the point. It's like, you're willing to take a risk, and it's not like he's gonna have to be like this heavy, slashing threat playing next to, potentially an MVP favorite next season, and someone that, potentially has a chance to go to the finals this season. Like a transcendent talent. So I'm not too worried about that, and I think it's a good fit here. That puts the Heat on the clock now, and they're in an interesting spot. They're in the conference finals right now, and I look at the Heat, and they're another one of those teams. Like, their money, like, they can't do a lot because of the money situation, the contracts they've given out, the contracts they're going to have to give out as well. And I think at this point, like, you take someone that's developmental, someone that you can develop, and I'm going to take Patrick Baldwin Jr. here at 27.
I knew it.
I like Patrick Baldwin Jr. a lot. He falls into my philosophy. Players just don't become like flat out terrible out of nowhere. There's usually some context behind it. I think there's some injury concerns. He's still, regardless of, even if he didn't suffer the injuries, he would have fallen down the board for me. Because there's no way he would, even with the injuries, without injuries, like he would be like top 3 to 5. Like I originally had him.
Mm-hmm.
But I still think like there's value for what his skill set is. And if any team's going to unlock that, I feel like it's going to be Miami. Among guys at this point. I think that for Patrick Baldwin Jr., he needs to go to a team that's going to either look to develop him or look to just throw him to the wolves. And I think that Miami fits the developing part. They can give him spot minutes here and there. They win enough games convincingly to the point where they can give him garbage time minutes when they find it necessary. I think it'd be a great situation for him. Say what you want about like some of the veterans, but it's a well-run organization from what I've heard, for the most part. They develop players well, and their track record speaks for itself. And to get a talent like this and potentially develop him, a few years down the line, we might look at this pick as a steal. It's not guaranteed. It's not as simple as just going to a team and being great necessarily because you were on that team. But I think that it's a good situation for him to go to.
Mm-hmm. I am not as enamored by Patrick Baldwin as you are. But we've had that conversation many times.
Mm-hmm. Off podcast. I think we've had at least 10 conversations about this before.
Yeah.
I understand your side of it as well. But I'm just kind of like, he very much fits my philosophy of, and I think it's a good track record of guys that, they weren't as good in college as they were in high school, and definitely with this case. But there's just something that feels off about it that makes me realize there's something that's factoring into this that can be fixed. And I think there's something with this that can be fixed. Organizational structure can do a lot for players, and maybe it's getting healthy NBA staff. The vertical is questionable, but he's 6'10", so I'm not. It's a weird thing to think about, but I think that it's just a really good situation for him to walk into. If the Raptors had a first-round pick, I would have taken him with the Raptors pick. So.
Yeah. With the next pick, it's the Golden State Warriors, and here I'm looking for someone who could contribute right away theoretically, but also has more upside than not upside. Like they have room to grow. They've shown flashes, and I'm gonna go with Ishmael Kamagate. He's someone who I think addresses maybe a need for center, because Kevon Looney he's fine. He's a fine NBA player, but he's nothing like special. I think Kamagate could be a low-end starter. I think he could be better than a Kevon Looney. He's shown some passing flashes, nothing crazy, but some at Paris. He has shown good rim running, good rim pressure. He's also shown really good defensive knack and a really good feel for the game at his young age. Like he's gone against Wembanyama a couple of times, and each time he's impressed, relatively speaking.
As much as you can against Wembanyama.
Yeah, no, like he legitimately.
Now, to be fair, he's a bit older than Wembanyama, but even Wembanyama dominated Chet.
Yeah.
So to hold your own against that's impressive to me, regardless.
Yeah. Because I've seen his first game against Wembanyama, and I think he actually played better than Wemby in that game. So it's really quite impressive. The displays he's put on, especially overseas on a team in Paris that is not constructed super well, at least from my understanding of it. I'm not an expert on Euro hoops at all, but I've talked to international scouts and that sort of deal, and they all say that Paris is constructed pretty terribly. And for him to thrive in that sort of environment really shows that he might have more to his game. And going into a Warriors developmental system, I like that fit.
And they still have Wiseman. We'll see what happens with him. I don't know if he'll ever be a starter, but I think that Wiseman can be a solid player in the league. But, at 28, you're not worried about fit. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
like that's the thing. At 28, especially when you're a team like the Warriors who could win it all, like you're just drafting guys that you think you can develop. Like you're taking projects at this point, like your developmental players. I think that I don't know if I was taking Tamagotchi here, but that's probably more because I wasn't thinking about it more than anything. I like Kamagache a lot. I think he's the second best true big in this class behind Duran. Because I consider Chet a forward, I consider Jabari a forward, and Paolo a forward as well. That moves us to 29, which is the Memphis Grizzlies again. And, you know, it's a weird spot for them to be in. I think they're looking for guys that can contribute right away, and Christian Brown is going to be that guy for me at 29.
Yeah, that's more than fair. Good shooter, good defender.
Yeah.
Not a ton of like star upside, but you know he's ready to contribute. Played well on the national championship run, and he's a mother fricker, if you will.
Yeah.
He talks shit.
Yeah.
Fits the culture there very well.
You see the meme of him, like him screaming, and they put like the caption was her sister was a witch. Remember you ever see that?
Yep. That's
one of the funniest things. I like Christian Brown a lot. The more I started like really watch him, you know, I think he's like one of those guys. Like you just know, like he's going to be in the rotation some way. Like, yeah, he just does things that like you want your rotation players to do, and doesn't hinder your team a lot either. In the role that he likely will play. That leads us to pick 30, which is the OKC Thunder. And there are players on the board that people are going to be mad at don't get picked. I know for a fact. But who are you taking?
I'm going to take Kendall Brown. They need forwards. They need like bigger players. And he's someone who, with development, with his athletic tools, with his feel for the game on the offensive end of things, can really develop into something decent. I think there are defensive concerns with him as far as he gets backdoored like double digits every game, it feels like. But I think with the proper development and the proper attention to his needs, he can become something that teams can really value. And I think OKC is a situation that can really foster that.
Yeah, you know, Kendall, someone started the year top 10 kind of guy, and then he kind of fell a bit. I think he might go a little bit higher than this, but 30, that's pretty good for OKC, a team that can give him minutes right away, even. Because to the Oklahoma City Thunder. To review, pick 1, Paolo Banchero going to the Magic. Pick 2, Chet Holmgren going to the OKC Thunder. Pick 3, Jaden Ivey going to the Houston Rockets. Pick 4, Jabari Smith going to the Kings. Pick 5, AJ Griffin going to the Pistons. Pick 6, Keegan Murray going to the Pacers. Blazers take Johnny Davis at 7. Benedict Mathurin goes to the Pelicans at 8. Spurs take Jalen Duren at 9. Wizards take Dyson Daniels at 10. Jeremy Sohan goes 11 to the Knicks. Saden Serb goes 12 to the Thunder. The Hornets take Tari Eason at 13. Malachi Branham goes 14 to the Cavs. 15, Mark Williams to the Hornets. 16, Okai Abaji to the Hawks. Osman Jang to the Rockets at 17. EJ Liddell, 18 to the Bulls. Jake Laravia at 19 to the Timberwolves. The Spurs take Leonard Miller at 20. Mozan Beauchamp goes 21 to the Nuggets. Blake Wesley goes 22 to the Grizzlies. Nikola Jovic goes 23 to the Nets. 24, Wendell Moore to the Bucks. 25, Jalen Williams to the Spurs. 26, Terquavion Smith to the Mavs. 27, Patrick Baldwin Jr. to the Heat. 28, Ismail Kamagate to the Warriors. 29, Christian Brown to the Grizzlies. And 30, Kendall Brown to the Thunder. There are a few picks that I think could have gone higher. That I think will go higher, I should say. Tari Eason's one I think will go higher in real life.
Mm-hmm.
Shaedon Sharpe is definitely one I think will go higher in real life. I
Mm-hmm.
have no doubts about
Yeah.
that. Um,
Jalen Williams.
yeah, Jokic
I
is someone that
if
could go a
I
bit higher. Like,
yeah,
there were
if I
guys that
had
didn't get
realized
picked
that, yeah,
that
if they're
going first round.
yeah,
I
like
started to know Shaedon
Jaden
slept, but
Hardy,
like Jaden Hurd, I think is going first round.
yeah,
Ty someone that will
maybe.
go first. Kendy's a weird one. He might go first, but I wouldn't be shocked if he goes second. But
Mm-hmm.
like, based off the way like the past team history and the way teams draft, it would shock
Mm-hmm.
me if Hardy and Ty Washington actually fell out of the first round in real life. But again, this is based off what
Yeah.
we would do.
Mm-hmm.
I think Shaedon would probably go high in real life as well, but we based it like
Yeah.
again about like, hey, these teams do need guys that can kind of fit and contribute, and we
Mm-hmm.
have similar grades on them. And again, that's a joy of this. We'll definitely do a mock draft down the line where it's more in line of what we think teams are gonna do
Mm-hmm.
more than anything. But I always love doing the ones where it's based off what we would do because the results are so wild and bizarre sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I want to do like maybe the Leonard Miller thing. Like, there's anything too wild here,
Mm-hmm.
minus maybe some of the guys that didn't get picked. But
Yeah.
again, doesn't just because someone didn't get drafted doesn't mean we don't think they're good or
Mm-hmm.
that they won't go that high. Like Shaedon, obviously, um, you know, but like.
Yeah.
That's a joy of this. We can look back on this and laugh like, wow, we had this guy not going in the first round. He ended up being awesome.
Yeah.
And it happens
And
every year. Like, go
yeah.
ahead.
And we did this live, so if
It
I
was
had realized
off the dome.
Jalen, yeah, if I had realized Jalen Williams was there, I would have taken him so many places higher than where he went. I would have probably taken him even at like I definitely would have taken him for the Nuggets. I definitely
I
would have taken
might
him
have
for the
taken him for the
Bucks.
Cavs at 14 if I knew he was on the board.
Yeah, like he's
Um,
someone who fell way further than he should have because the
and I'm
site
glad
we
you
were
picked up
using
on
was.
Shaedon because I did not pick up on that. I did not. I
I
started. I
was just
think
watching him
I'm like,
fall, and I was like, "Oh,
yeah,
okay."
he's,
I mean, I'll take it, but
it was kind of like a
but
villain. Yeah, but
yeah.
that's the joy of the draft. Like, we don't know what's gonna happen.
Hmm.
Guys fall all the time. Guys go higher than expected. Who would that Josh Primo would go 12th overall.
Hmm.
Or even like like Tyrese Maxey's a big example. Another example, like he's someone that I think the majority of people, even like the mainstream, had him in the lottery, and he fell out of the top 20. So,
Yeah,
and he shouldn't have fallen that far.
he should not have.
Live and learn.
But
But yeah,
yeah,
that's all we had to say for this one. Thanks to Mark for coming on. So regardless of like if he left early or not, like it was a joy to have him on.
hmm
Um, and I always love having Mark on. He's one of my favorite writers, one of my favorite people as
yeah,
well.
good guy.
Great human being. So thank you to him.
World
Go
class.
follow us on Twitter. Go follow him on Twitter. Check out Tag the Roll with Jake Rosen. And yeah, we'll see you guys in the next one. We'll probably start brainstorming what prospects we're going to talk about in the next one very soon.